Hello world, I'm Vibhav Tiwari and today I'm gonna be reading this book, Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman. It's a compilation of anecdotes by world famous physicist Richard Feynman and it's edited by Ralph Leighton. Well, this book is very close to me. It has stayed with me through some very tough times, and I have read it about 50, more than 50 times, and I've never felt bored. So let's start. First of all, is the introduction, is the preface by Ralph Leighton himself. So here it goes. The stories in this book were collected intermittently and informally during 7 years of very enjoyable drumming with Richard Feynman. I found each story by itself to be amusing and the collection taken together to be amazing. That one person could have so many wonderfully crazy things happen to him in one life is sometimes hard to believe. That one person could invent so much innocent mischief in one life is surely an inspiration. Well, that's the end of the preface. And next up, we have an introduction by Albert R. Hibbs. I hope these won't be the only memoirs of Richard Feynman. Certainly, the reminiscences here give a true picture of much of his character. His almost compulsive need to solve puzzles, his provocative mischievousness, his indignant impatience with pretension and hypocrisy, and his talent for one upping anybody who tries to one up him. This book is great reading, outrageous, shocking, still warm, and very human. For all that, for all that, it only skirts the keystone of his life, science. We see it here and there as background material in one sketch or another, but never as a focus of his existence, which generations of his students and colleagues know it to be. Perhaps nothing else is possible. There may be no way to construct such a series of delightful stories about himself and his work. The challenge and frustration, the excitement that keeps in sight, and the deep pleasure of scientific understanding that has been the wellspring of happiness in his life. I remember that, sorry, I remember when I was his student how it was when he walked into one of his lectures. He would be standing in front of the hall, smiling at all of us, all as we came in, his fingers tapping out a complicated rhythm on the backstop of the demonstration bench across the front of the lecture hall. As latecomers took their seats, he picked up the chalk and began spinning it rapidly through his fingers in a manner of a professional gambler playing with a poker chip, still smiling happily as if at some secret joke. And then, still smiling, he talked to us about physics, his diagrams, and equations, helping us to share his understanding. It was no secret joke that brought the smile and the sparkle in his eye. It was physics, the joy of physics. The joy was contagious. We are fortunate who caught that infection. Now, here is your opportunity to be exposed to the joy of life in the style of Feynman. Albert R. Hibbs, Senior Member of Technical Staff, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, California Institute of Technology. Next up are the vitals. It was written by Richard Feynman himself. So here it goes. Some facts about my timing. I was born in 1918 in a small town called Far Rockaway, right on the outskirts of New York, near the sea. I lived there until 1935, when I was 17. I went to MIT for 4 years and then I went to Princeton in about 1939. During the time I was at Princeton, I started to work on the Manhattan Project and I ultimately went to Los Alamos in April 1943. Until something like October or November 1946, when I went to Cornell. I got married to Arlene in 1941 and she died of tuberculosis when I was at Los Alamos in 1946. I was at Cornell until about 1941. I visited Brazil in the summer of 1949 and spent half a year there in 1951 and then went to Caltech where I have been ever since. I went to Japan at the end of 1951 for a couple of weeks and then again a year or two later just after I married my second wife, Marilou. I'm now married to Gwyneth, who is English, and we have two children, Carl and Michelle. RPF, that's Richard Philip Feynman.